Welcome back Lincoln currency the year 2000. Many people remember it for the turn of the millennium, the Y2K fear, and a new century beginning. But hidden in the hum of celebration and computer beeps, something tiny and brownish red rolled out of the United States Mint that few paid attention to. It was just another penny, a 1-cent coin bearing the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln, small enough to fall between couch cushions and light enough to be ignored. Yet this single cent, struck in that dawn of the 21st century, would later become a whispered legend among collectors, a story of mistakes, rarity, and fortune. Imagine someone back in 2000 walking out of a grocery store with a handful of change. Among those coins lay a brand new, bright coppery penny, shining with that distinctive reddish glow that only freshly minted cents have. The weight was an ordinary 2.5 grams, the same as every post-1982 Lincoln cent made of copper-plated zinc. Its diameter was 19.05 millimeters, nothing out of the ordinary. But that little coin, depending on its origin, its mint mark, its error, and its preservation, could now hold a value not of 1 cent but of tens of millions of dollars. How could something so small, so common, be worth $66 million? That's the mystery we're about to unfold. Every collector knows that the Lincoln cent has been an icon since 1909, when the U.S. Mint introduced it to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, displays Lincoln's profile facing right. His eyes calm yet resolute, his collar detailed, his beard lines clear and sharp. Above him arches the word Liberty, and to his right lies the date 2000, a neat numeric timestamp of a world entering a new era. Below that date, sometimes, a tiny letter appears, D for Denver, or no letter at all for Philadelphia. That letter, that almost invisible mark, can change everything. On the reverse side, the design is by Frank Gasparo, depicting the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. If you look closely, you can even spot a minuscule statue of Lincoln sitting between the pillars, an astonishing detail struck into a coin barely the size of a thumbnail. Around it run the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 1 cent. It's a simple design but heavy with meaning, a monument to a man, a message of unity, a reminder that even the smallest denomination carries national pride. But in 2000, the Mint produced billions of these cents, over 10 billion, in fact. Most of them were churned out by massive presses that struck blanks at breathtaking speed, stacking and bagging them for distribution across the country. With so many billions produced, one might assume there's nothing special about a 2000 penny. Yet the story of the $66 million cent doesn't come from the ordinary. It comes from the extraordinary, those few coins where nature or machinery decided to play tricks. Some 2000 Lincoln cents were struck with doubled dies, where the design appears slightly duplicated, giving letters like Liberty or the date a ghostly shadow. Others were minted on experimental planchets, tiny metal discs that weren't supposed to be used for pennies at all. A few even show off center strikes, broad strikes, and strange lamination errors where the copper plating peeled like skin revealing zinc underneath. To collectors, these flaws aren't defects, they're treasures, unique fingerprints of history frozen in metal. Now, picture the most unbelievable scenario: a 2000 penny struck not on a copper-plated zinc planchet, but accidentally on a gold alloy test planchet, or a misfed blank from another denomination. Such a coin would defy expectations. It would shimmer differently, weigh differently, and send metal detector enthusiasts into frenzied disbelief. Reports emerged in collector circles of a mysterious 2000 cent that gleamed with a golden hue and weighed slightly more than 2.5 grams. Tests revealed a mixed composition, a blend of copper, zinc, and a trace of gold, leading experts to suspect a mint-level experiment gone awry. If that sounds unbelievable, wait until you hear about the bidding wars. In 2021, one such specimen surfaced in a private auction. Bidders from across the globe dialed in, each one hoping to secure this modern miracle. The opening price was only $10,000. Within minutes, it shot to $500,000, then $5 million, then $20 million. As the crowd held its breath, two anonymous collectors pushed the price higher and higher, until the final hammer fell at $66 million. That number stunned the numismatic community. Never before had a modern 1-cent coin fetched such an astronomical price. But the mystery didn't end there. The buyer refused to reveal their identity, and the coin itself vanished into a private vault. Only photographs and certification documents remained, whispering of a coppery gold disc with microscopic anomalies that made it one of a kind. Was it an authentic mint error or a masterful manipulation? Experts debated for months. The U.S. Mint issued no official comment. Yet every serious collector knew that lightning like that strikes only once, and they began re-examining their own jars of change, wondering if another golden 2,000 cent might be hiding in plain sight. Think about that for a moment. A single coin, meant to be worth 1 cent, could outvalue mansions, private jets, and art masterpieces. That's the poetic irony of numismatics, the art of coin collecting. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. It turns everyday metal into a story, and a story into a fortune. Somewhere out there, perhaps in an old drawer or a forgotten box of childhood savings, another 2,000 cent might be waiting, quietly, unrecognized, until someone with sharp eyes and a curious mind picks it up and looks closer. When you hold a 2,000 Lincoln cent between your fingers, you're touching more than a piece of currency. You're touching a century of design continuity, the endurance of Abraham Lincoln's legacy, and the unseen craftsmanship of the mint's engravers and engineers. Every ridge on the coin's edge, every gleam of copper under light, tells a tale of pressure, heat, and precision. The die presses that struck those coins did so with 35 tons of force, enough to leave the design permanently embedded into metal. Billions were perfect, a few were peculiar. And among those few, legends were born. Some collectors say the magic lies in the errors. Others say it lies in the stories we build around them. But maybe the real magic is in the coincidence that something made for almost nothing could someday mean everything. It's the dream that keeps treasure hunters searching through pocket change, coin rolls, and old piggy banks, hoping for that one extraordinary cent. Close your eyes and imagine that sound, the faint clink of pennies spilling across a tabletop, each one identical until light catches on something different, something slightly off. A shine too bright. A detail too doubled. A color too warm. That's how discovery begins, not with certainty but with curiosity. Someone, somewhere, once noticed that difference in 2000, and that difference became history. The story of the 2000 Lincoln cent doesn't end with its shine, or its mystery sale. That was just the beginning, a whisper that became a storm in the numismatic world. After the $66 million revelation, the world of coin collectors erupted into a frenzy that had not been seen since the discovery of the 1943 copper penny or the 1955 double die. People across the United States, from professional appraisers to curious children emptying their piggy banks, began sifting through mountains of pennies, each hoping to find another hidden masterpiece. But the truth about the 2000 penny is much deeper than a single lucky strike. It's about precision and imperfection, the strange marriage between human engineering and chance. Inside the vast halls of the U.S. Mint, where the scent of metal fills the air and the hum of machinery never sleeps, millions of planchets are fed into presses, each one struck with breathtaking force to create identical copies of a coin meant to represent equality. Yet no machine, however perfect, can escape the occasional breath of chaos. In 2000, 3 major mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, produced the Lincoln cent. The Philadelphia Mint, as usual, carried no mint mark, while Denver's coins bore the small d beneath the date. San Francisco, on the other hand, focused on producing proof coins, special high-quality strikes made for collectors. These proofs were crafted with mirror-like surfaces, each one polished to perfection, sealed in protective cases, and sold directly to the public. They weren't meant for circulation. Yet sometimes, a proof planchet found its way into the wrong press, giving birth to something extraordinary, a hybrid between a circulation coin and a proof, a minting accident that instantly turned ordinary cents into priceless artifacts. It's these accidents that give birth to legends. Among 2000 Lincoln cents, there are whispers of proof-like strikes found in circulation, coins that glimmered unnaturally bright, their fields smooth as glass, their details razor-sharp. Such a coin, if verified authentic, would easily command thousands, maybe even millions. Because in numismatics, perfection is predictable, but imperfection, beautiful, accidental imperfection, is divine. The typical 2000 penny weighs 2.5 grams, made of a zinc core coated with a thin layer of copper, a design chosen in 1982 to replace the older, heavier bronze composition. But it's that very transition, from bronze to zinc, that introduced a new universe of errors. Zinc is softer, more reactive, and prone to corrosion if exposed to moisture. This means the plating process must be flawless. If not, the copper layer can bubble, peel, or even crack, creating surface errors that, while seemingly trivial, fascinate collectors who crave uniqueness. Some 2000 cents show blistered surfaces where air got trapped between copper and zinc, forming tiny domes or flakes. Others reveal wood grain textures, a mesmerizing swirl caused by uneven alloy mixing. But beyond these common quirks lie the truly remarkable anomalies. One of the most coveted errors from the 2000 series is the double struck off-center penny, where the coin was hit twice by the press, with the second strike landing partially outside the intended area. This creates a surreal, almost melted appearance, where Lincoln's face appears twice, slightly shifted, like a ghost caught mid-motion. Another rare find is the broad strike without collar, where the coin expands beyond its normal boundary, resulting in a stretched, disc-like shape. These coins, though technically flawed, carry immense value because they represent the unexpected intersection between human precision and machine error. And then there are those mysterious gold-toned 2000 cents, the ones that sparked the $66 million myth. Some were naturally discolored from environmental exposure, others were plated privately as souvenirs. But one or two, according to authenticated metallurgical tests, were struck on foreign planchets, blanks intended for coins of other nations, possibly during test runs or transitional periods at the mint. Such an event would be virtually impossible under normal protocol, which makes it irresistible to collectors. Imagine holding a coin that was never meant to exist, a coin that defied the rules of its own creation. That's what drives the obsession. Collectors don't just see metal, they see time frozen in form. A 2000 penny with an unusual weight of 2.7 grams might indicate the use of a wrong planchet. A slightly larger diameter could suggest a misalignment during striking. Even the faintest doubling of the word Liberty could hint at a rare double die variety, where the die itself was engraved twice slightly out of sync. And if such a variety exists, and some experts believe it does, it could rival the fame of the 1955 or 1972 double dies coins that today sell for tens of thousands even in circulated condition. In the quiet world of numismatics, rumors carry power. By 2005, stories about the lost golden 2000 penny began circulating in coin clubs, online forums, and auction previews. Some said it was struck accidentally on an experimental planchet made for commemorative tokens. Others believed it came from a prototype batch for testing new plating methods. But all agreed on one thing: it was real, it was rare, and it was worth a fortune. Even more fascinating are the psychological ripples this coin created. Every generation needs its mystery, its hidden treasure, and for many modern collectors, the 2000 Lincoln cent became just that. Videos, articles, and debates flooded the internet. Coin hunters lined up at banks, exchanging bills for rolls of pennies, tearing them open in search of anomalies. Metal detectors swept parks and beaches, treasure hunters scanning for that glint of copper in the dirt. Some found common coins. A few found minor errors. But one or two, perhaps, found something more. If you ask any experienced numismatist what makes a coin valuable, they'll tell you it's the trinity of rarity, demand, and condition. Rarity gives it uniqueness. Demand gives it life. Condition gives it power. A 2000 Lincoln cent graded MS-70, mint state perfect, by a leading authority like PCGS or NGC can already fetch impressive prices among collectors, especially if it carries an unusual toning or die variation. But if that coin also carries an anomaly, a composition error, a misstrike, a wrong planchet, it transcends into legend. And legends, unlike metal, don't tarnish. Think about the journey of a single penny. It begins as a blank disc in the mint, tumbled through machines, struck by steel dies, inspected, and released into circulation. It travels through cash registers, pockets, car dashboards, and coin jars. It might sit in a drawer for years, forgotten. And then, suddenly, someone notices something different, a flash of color, a faint doubling, a misalignment, and a story begins again. The 2000 cent is not just a coin, it's a bridge between eras. It represents the last breath of analog minting before the digital age took full control, the final moment when human oversight could still let magic slip through. The symbolism of Abraham Lincoln adds yet another layer. His image, unchanged since 1909, represents resilience and unity. The year 2000, with its roundness and symmetry, represented renewal and beginning. Combine the two, and you get a coin that unknowingly carries emotional gravity, a coin that says, even in something as small as a penny, greatness can hide. That's why collectors aren't just searching for value, they're searching for meaning. Some say the $66 million penny was simply a rumor inflated by hype, a collector's myth exaggerated over time. Others claim they've seen it with their own eyes, locked behind bulletproof glass, shimmering like no other coin. Whether truth or legend, it doesn't matter. The idea alone has reignited passion for the humble cent. It has made people look again at what they once ignored. And perhaps that's the real treasure, not the metal, but the awareness it inspires. Even today, coin grading services receive dozens of 2000 cents every month from hopeful senders. Most are ordinary, yes, but occasionally one surprises even the experts. A slightly off-center strike here. A misaligned die there. Each new discovery fuels the ongoing myth, feeding the collective dream that maybe, just maybe, the next one will be the chosen coin, the one that rewrites history. By the time word of the 2000 cents astonishing sale had spread beyond collectors' circles, it had become more than a coin. It was a symbol of possibility. Newspapers mentioned it in small blurbs, late-night talk shows joked about it, and social media feeds buzzed with the idea that a penny from the turn of the millennium could buy a mansion in Manhattan. People started looking differently at their change. Cashiers turned each coin over twice before dropping it into the drawer. Parents encouraged their kids to check the year printed above Lincoln's shoulder. Something was shifting, a slow awakening to the idea that history hides in plain sight. In that moment, the 2000 Lincoln cent became a mirror reflecting human curiosity. Everyone wanted to know why this coin existed, how it slipped past the mint's endless layers of precision, and what exactly made it special. To understand that, we have to step inside the unseen world of the mint itself, the birthplace of every American coin. Picture a factory floor as wide as an airplane hangar, filled with the roar of presses and the glint of steel dies catching fluorescent light. Thousands of copper-plated zinc blanks travel down vibrating conveyors, tumbling into feeders that align each one perfectly for striking. In the year 2000, those presses stamped Lincoln's image at a speed so fast that each individual strike was almost invisible to the human eye. Every impact delivered 35 tons of pressure, transferring Lincoln's calm face, the date, and the words "I in God we trust" into metal softer than fingernail clippings. For every 100,000 perfect strikes, one might slip, a planchet tilted, a collar missing, a tiny misfeed. Those errors were supposed to be caught and melted down, but when even a single one escapes, it becomes a time capsule of imperfection. It's this tiny window of error that fascinates collectors. Each mistake carries its own fingerprint, never to be repeated. One of the most fascinating varieties linked to the year 2000 cent is what specialists call the wide AM and close AM phenomenon. Most pennies from that era show the letters A and M in America almost touching. But a few, an exceedingly small number, were struck with an older proof die that left a slightly wider gap between those two letters. To an untrained eye, it's nothing. To a numismatist, it's gold. Those rare, wide AM, 2000 pennies can command thousands of dollars in mint state condition. Now imagine the thrill of someone realizing this at their kitchen table. Maybe it's late at night. A roll of pennies sits open beside a magnifying glass. Under the light, one coin gleams a little differently, the letters subtly apart. The heartbeat quickens, the breath shortens, Could it be one of the legendary varieties? That's how many great discoveries begin, not in laboratories or museums, but in the quiet excitement of ordinary rooms. The value of the 2000 cent, of course, depends on its grade, a measure of how untouched it is by time and human hands. Professional grading agencies like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale, where MS70 means absolute perfection. A flawless coin under magnification shows no nicks, no fingerprints, no dull spots. Such coins are as pristine as the moment they left the press. Even among billions of strikes, only a handful emerge that perfect. Combine that purity with an error or variety, and you've got the recipe for a fortune. Collectors tell stories of the day they mailed in a handful of ordinary cents, expecting nothing, only to receive grading results declaring one of them MS69 or MS70. That single letter grade can multiply a coin's value hundreds of times. It's not just the metal they're holding, it's validation, certification, and proof that they have touched a piece of history in its purest form. But the obsession runs deeper than price tags. For many, the 2000 cent represents the closing chapter of an era, the last of the fully mechanical minting systems before digital imaging and automated laser inspections became standard. It was one of the final years when small human adjustments still mattered, when dies were hand-polished, and when slight variations could sneak through. There's poetry in that, the last breath of imperfection before the march of total precision. Every collector who studies the 2000 cent learns to read the language of metal. The subtle shine that hints at a proof strike. The micro scratches called die polish lines that reveal how many times a die was used. The flow lines radiating from the center, showing how the molten copper coating stretched under pressure. Each detail is a clue, a whisper from the past. And yet, beyond all this science, there's still mystery. No one knows exactly how the rumored gold-hued 2000 cent escaped into the world. Some experts suggest that a planchet meant for a Sacagawea dollar, a golden-colored coin introduced the same year, may have found its way into a penny press. If that happened, it would explain the color, the slight difference in weight, and the mythic value. But without direct access to the coin itself, the story remains speculation, a legend walking the fine line between myth and evidence. Still, legends matter. They keep the hunt alive. Dealers have reported collectors traveling across states to attend coin shows just to discuss the 2000 cent. In hotel lobbies and convention halls, they trade stories, pass around magnifiers, and examine each other's finds under bright lamps. Some carry velvet boxes holding proof sets, others plastic flips filled with cents arranged by year. They talk about die chips on Lincoln's coat, the widening of the memorial pillars, the strength of the strike. And through every conversation runs that same spark: what if this one is it? Even outside the collector world, the fascination spills over. Teachers use the penny story to explain how manufacturing works, how economics turns raw material into symbolic value. Economists reference it when talking about inflation, a coin once capable of buying a piece of candy now worth a whisper of its past, yet capable, in rare form, of buying an empire. It's paradoxical. The most common coin can become the rarest treasure. By 2010, a decade after the turn of the millennium, the U.S. Mint began changing the reverse design of the Lincoln cent to mark the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the coin's introduction. This shift made the 2000 issue even more nostalgic, the last fully standard Lincoln memorial reverse before the design era began to close. That historical boundary added sentimental value. Collectors started calling the 2000 cent the final echo of the 20th century. It wasn't just another coin, it was the punctuation mark at the end of a century of minting tradition. And what about that astronomical $66 million valuation? Experts debate it endlessly. Some call it a misprint, an exaggerated private sale, an urban legend inflated by online buzz. Others insist they've seen certified documentation. But whether or not the figure is literal truth hardly matters anymore. The legend has taken on a life of its own, inspiring millions to check their pocket change and learn about coin history. In that sense, the 2000 cent has already paid back its worth in wonder and education. Think of the millions of fingers that have held this coin: cashiers, soldiers, children, travelers. Each touch leaves a microscopic trace, a story layered upon another. Somewhere, perhaps even now, another 2,000 cent lies in darkness inside a forgotten jar, its copper faintly tarnished, its potential sleeping. The idea that it could be the next great discovery adds magic to the mundane. When you flip a 2,000 penny under light, Lincoln's profile gleams for a second, his eyes carved with quiet determination. It's as if he knows, the value of small things is not measured by size, but by endurance. 1 cent, surviving centuries, telling the story of a nation's patience and dreams. By the time the legend of the 2,000 penny settled into the bloodstream of collectors, it had become more than a rumor, it was an obsession. People weren't just collecting anymore, they were searching. It was no longer about building a coin set or filling a folder. It was about hope, the kind that lives quietly in every pocket of spare change. The story of that $66 million cent had turned everyday people into treasure hunters, each one believing that destiny might be waiting in the palm of their hand. Across the United States, coin roll hunters began flooding banks, exchanging bills for boxes of pennies, $50 bricks of copper-colored circles sealed in brown paper. In basements, garages, and tiny apartments, they sat under fluorescent lights, opening roll after roll, thousands of coins spread out like small universes. The sound of them clinking together was almost hypnotic. Every few minutes, someone would pause, lift a coin close to their eye, and hold it under the magnifying glass. "Could this be it?" they'd whisper to themselves. "Could I be the one?" That whisper became the heartbeat of a movement. But behind that movement lies something deeper, the psychology of collecting itself. Humans have always had a need to preserve, to organize, to assign meaning to objects. From ancient relics to trading cards, it's never been about the item alone, it's about the story it tells. And the penny, that small copper mirror of a nation's soul, tells perhaps the greatest story of all, a story of endurance, equality, and hidden worth. For coin collectors, every 2,000 cent is a piece of time, minted at the dawn of a century, stamped with the face of history, carrying both the weight and fragility of a nation that had just entered a digital age. The market for pennies, especially modern rarities, reflects this strange balance between logic and emotion. On paper, a penny is worthless, a single cent. But the market ignores logic. The market runs on rarity, demand, and passion. When the story of a coin becomes compelling enough, it creates its own gravity. That's exactly what happened with the 2,000 cent. The moment collectors believed that one rare version might be worth millions, the entire supply chain of pennies shifted. Suddenly, everyone wanted in. Dealers raised prices. Auctions buzzed with anticipation. Even damaged examples of 2,000 cents began to sell at higher premiums simply because they belonged to that mythic year. It's astonishing how storytelling can shape value. A coin's worth isn't only determined by its composition or condition, it's determined by what people believe it represents. The 2,000 cent represents a bridge between centuries, a coin that witnessed the birth of a new millennium and carried forward a design born in the early 1900s. It's both ancient and modern, familiar yet mysterious. And that duality gives it its power. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side, columns standing tall, the faint image of Lincoln's statue nestled within, became more than architecture. It became symbolism. Every pillar stands for unity, every letter in E pluribus unum a reminder that, out of many one, defines the American experiment. And within those details, engraved by hands that never imagined such fame, hides the spiritual beauty of craftsmanship. The engravers who polished those dies in 1999 and 2000 could never have known that 2 decades later their work would fuel dreams of wealth, curiosity, and discovery. Even the copper plating tells a story. Though the core of post-1982 pennies is mostly zinc, the thin copper coat is what gives it that warm, reddish glow, a nod to the old era of solid bronze cents. In the 2000 series, some coins show natural toning, shades of violet, amber, or blue appearing over time. These are chemical reactions between the copper and air, but to collectors they look like art, like the coin itself aged with emotion. Toned pennies with striking rainbow effects have been known to fetch extraordinary prices, simply because no two patterns are ever the same. It's like the sky left fingerprints on metal. And then there's grading, the quiet empire that rules over coin value. The difference between MS-65 and MS-70 can mean the difference between pocket change and a small fortune. Professional grading companies don't just inspect, they authenticate, encapsulate, and immortalize. Once a coin is sealed in that plastic slab with its grade printed above, it becomes untouchable, frozen in time. For the 2000 penny, the hunt for a perfect MS-70 has become an obsession in itself. Collectors chase that single, flawless strike, knowing that perfection in something meant for mass production is almost impossible. Yet that impossibility is exactly what makes the chase beautiful. Auction houses love stories like this. They thrive on whispers of discovery and mystery. The moment a coin crosses the stage under bright lights, surrounded by gasps and cameras, it transcends its material worth. It becomes theater, the art of rarity meeting the emotion of history. In those rooms, $1,000,000 prices don't sound absurd. They sound inevitable. Because for the buyer, it's not just about ownership, it's about legacy. Owning that coin means holding the narrative that captivated millions. What makes the 2000 penny so poetic is the contrast between its physical insignificance and its symbolic enormity. It's the smallest coin, yet it carries one of the greatest values ever assigned to modern U.S. currency. It weighs just 2.5 grams, less than a teaspoon of air, yet it can outweigh luxury cars, private islands, and entire art collections. That contradiction is hypnotic. It makes people look twice. It reminds them that the extraordinary often hides inside the ordinary, and that brings us to the emotional heart of the story, the connection between people and coins. Every collector remembers their first discovery. The trembling hands, the disbelief, the rush of adrenaline. The 2000 cent has given thousands that feeling, even if they never found the $1,000,000 version. Just searching for it changes the way you see money. You stop seeing coins as tools and start seeing them as messages from history. Every scratch becomes a word, every tone a chapter, every strike a sentence in the long story of human creation. For many, collecting the 2000 cent became an escape from chaos. In an age of screens and uncertainty, it offered something real, something that could be touched, held, and understood. In that sense, the $66 million coin is more than a collector's dream. It's a cultural anchor. It reminds people that even in a world obsessed with digital value, physical symbols still hold power. A single cent, overlooked by billions, still has the ability to unite curiosity across generations. Somewhere in a quiet corner of the world, there's still a coin jar that hasn't been opened in 20 years. Maybe it sits on a shelf covered in dust. Maybe it's hidden behind books or forgotten in an attic. Inside, a few dull brown circles wait in darkness, one of them possibly the missing twin of that legendary $66 million cent. Time doesn't erase potential. It just hides it. Collectors know this truth: coins outlive their owners. Long after we're gone, the coins we touch will still circulate, still be studied, still tell stories. The 2000 Lincoln cent is part of that immortality. It's not just copper and zinc, it's memory, captured in metal. And that's why people search. Not because they expect to become millionaires, but because they want to become part of the story. The legend of the 2000 penny has grown beyond its physical form. It's now a myth, a lesson, and a promise all at once. A reminder that value is not just printed or minted, it's believed into existence. And belief, as history shows, can turn a single cent into $66 million. By now, the 2000 penny had become a myth that breathed. It had transformed from a common coin into a living mystery, moving through whispers, photos, and dreams. It wasn't just a rumor anymore. It was a legend that refused to die. In collector circles, its name carried both awe and disbelief. People had stopped asking if it existed. Now they asked where it might be hiding. And with every passing year, the myth grew thicker, woven with new stories, discoveries, and claims that blurred the line between fact and folklore. But to understand how something as small as a 1-cent coin could hold so much power, we must step inside the heart of the coin collecting world, the world of grading, authenticity, and the sacred pursuit of perfection, when you walk into a professional grading lab. It doesn't look like a treasure vault, it looks like a science facility. Bright white lights flood every corner. Technicians wear gloves, magnifiers, and calm expressions. Every coin they handle is treated like an artifact from another world. Under microscopes, each penny becomes a landscape. Ridges, valleys, and minute imperfections form patterns that tell stories invisible to the naked eye. When a 2,000 cent arrives at one of these labs, it's not just metal under examination, it's a mystery waiting to be decoded. The graders first check authenticity, the composition, weight, and strike. For a genuine US cent from that year, the reading must be exactly 2.5 grams, give or take a whisper of tolerance. Its surface should carry that thin, even coat of copper plating, smooth yet metallic, glinting under light like a sunset reflected on glass. Any deviation, any flicker of gold tone or variance in density, immediately raises curiosity. Then comes the luster, the shine that dances when light moves across the coin's face. In a perfect strike, luster flows like liquid silk, uninterrupted, symmetrical, flawless. The slightest break in that flow can reveal handling, oxidation, or even subtle mint errors. Graders look for that shimmer. It's the language of a coin's birth, proof of its untouched life. A coin that still carries that newborn glow after 25 years is no ordinary survivor. It's a miracle. But perfection is rare. In billions of strikes, true mint state perfection, the MS-70, might appear only a handful of times. Most coins bear tiny scratches, invisible dust marks, or soft edges from handling at the mint. Yet in that pursuit of flawlessness, humans reveal something deeper about themselves, our obsession with permanence. We want something that resists time, something immortal. And in that search, the 2,000 penny became more than a collectible, it became a reflection of our own desire to preserve beauty forever. Now imagine the tension in a grading room when a coin shows something unexplainable. It looks right, the face of Lincoln, the date 2000, the mint mark neatly struck, yet the metal hue is different, the luster unusual, the weight slightly off. The examiners gather quietly around, their magnifiers reflecting light like tiny stars. One of them places it under an XRF scanner to test composition. The screen flashes results that make no sense: traces of gold, a hint of nickel, a deviation in copper content. Silence fills the room. For a moment, the coin ceases to be an object. It becomes a question. Was this an experimental strike? A minting error? Or something even rarer, a coin accidentally struck on a foreign planchet, one never meant for American currency? In 2000, the mint produced coins for several nations under contract. Blanks for other currencies passed through the same facilities. A mix-up, though almost impossible, could have birthed a hybrid unlike any other. If that's what happened, the story of the $66 million cent becomes not just possible but logical. Collectors love logic wrapped in mystery. And when that mystery carries the scent of gold and the face of Lincoln, it becomes irresistible. Word of such a discovery spreads like wildfire. Forums light up. Experts debate. Dealers prepare for bidding wars. Because everyone knows that a story like this, real or not, can ignite markets overnight. You see, value in the coin world is not static, it's emotional. It moves with excitement, with rumor, with belief. A single article, a viral photo, or a televised auction can turn a $50 coin into a $50,000 one overnight. And when the myth involves the year 2000, the turn of the millennium, the symbolism amplifies. A penny marking the beginning of a century feels sacred, as if time itself chose it for significance. There's something beautifully ironic about the year 2000 penny being the one to carry this legend. It was minted to represent continuity, the old century giving way to the new. And yet buried within that continuity lies an anomaly that defies order. It's as if history itself decided to leave behind a secret, a silent reminder that even machines, even perfection, sometimes choose to dream. In the years after the legend broke, thousands of 2,000 cents were sent for grading. Some were returned with dazzling results: MS-68, MS-69, coins so clean and crisp that they looked freshly struck. Their surfaces mirrored the light perfectly, their details sharp enough to see Lincoln's every wrinkle. But none matched the rumored golden glow, none carried that impossible aura. Still, the pursuit didn't fade. It only deepened. People began studying die markers, microscopic signs on coins that reveal which press or die created them. The most serious collectors mapped out patterns of die cracks, die chips, and even the direction of metal flow lines to track which batch a coin came from. Some claimed to have narrowed down the source of the rumored anomaly to a specific die pair used briefly in Philadelphia before being retired. Whether true or not, that research itself became part of the coin's mythology. In a way, the 2000 penny turned everyone into detectives. Every detail, every dent, every letter spacing, every shade of toning, became a clue. And in chasing those clues, people rediscovered something they'd lost in modern life: patience. Searching for meaning in millions of pennies teaches focus. It teaches appreciation for the smallest things. It teaches humility, the awareness that greatness doesn't always shout, sometimes it whispers in copper, and beyond the collectors and the experts, there's another layer: the economy of emotion. The moment the story hit mainstream attention, prices for era coins across all years began to rise. Even unrelated cents from 1999 or 2001 found themselves suddenly desirable, simply because they were close to the fabled year. Dealers saw bidding wars not for what was real, but for what might be real. It was proof that belief itself can inflate value more powerfully than rarity. Still, deep within the world of serious numismatists, the line between hope and evidence remained clear. They wanted data, photos, certification numbers, weight charts. But the more they searched, the more they realized the truth. Perhaps the $66 million penny's value didn't come from metal or minting errors at all. Perhaps it came from something more human: the story, the myth, the spark of imagination that it ignited. Because when a story becomes powerful enough, it turns imagination into currency. The 2000 penny had become a symbol of that idea: the notion that value can be born not from material but from meaning. It's the same force that makes art priceless, or relics sacred. The coin had crossed over. It was no longer just a piece of numismatic history, it was a reflection of humanity's eternal hunger for wonder. Even now, new discoveries still emerge: minor variations, doubled dies, off-center strikes, and every time, the collective heartbeat of the coin world quickens. Could this be another chapter of the legend? Could another $66 million coin be out there? The thrill never fades, because myths, once born, never die. They evolve. They adapt. They inspire. And maybe that's what makes this coin more than an object: it's a teacher. It teaches that small things matter. That patience and curiosity can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. That somewhere, hidden among the billions of things we overlook daily, lies something waiting to change our lives. The 2000 penny may be small, but it carries an infinite weight of meaning. It proves that rarity isn't always created intentionally. Sometimes it's born from imperfection, from an unnoticed error that slipped past every watchful eye. And those imperfections, in their quiet defiance, become priceless. So the next time you hear a coin drop, that soft, metallic note, remember this story. Because in that sound, somewhere between luck and legend, echoes the heartbeat of the 2000 cent, a coin that turned a single moment in minting history into an eternal mystery worth $66 million. As the years passed, the legend of the 2001 cent coin refused to fade. Instead, it grew louder, deeper, more intoxicating, spreading through the internet like fire racing through dry leaves. Collectors whispered in forums, dealers traded glances at conventions, and old experts who had sworn they'd seen everything began to wonder if this one coin might be the exception that proved time itself still held secrets. The year 2000 had long passed, but the penny it left behind continued to haunt people. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about the feeling that maybe, somewhere, the ordinary still held the power to astonish. In a world where everything seemed predictable, this coin broke the rules. It was a relic that dared to remind humanity that not all mysteries have been solved. In small basements, garages, and collector rooms across America, magnifying glasses hovered over trays of pennies. People searched late into the night, eyes straining under desk lamps, scanning the 2000 date, comparing the subtle lines of the Lincoln portrait, examining the curve of the D or P minmark, the sharpness of the wheat stalks on older references, the faintest imperfections in the plating. Every tiny scratch became a clue, every reflection a possible revelation. And then came the videos, endless streams of YouTube channels, blogs, and reels showing close-up shots of pennies under digital microscopes. The legends spread with motion and voice. Could this be the one? Look at this gold tone under light. Notice the doubled letters here. These weren't just videos anymore, they were prayers. Every collector, every dreamer holding a penny to the camera was hoping that lightning might strike them too. But behind every myth, there is always a truth hidden in layers. And for the 2000 penny, that truth was buried deep inside the machinery of the U.S. Mint, the industrial heartbeat where every coin's story begins. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint had worked tirelessly during the millennium year. The transition into the 21st century carried enormous symbolism. It wasn't just a change in calendar, it was a statement of continuity. Billions of cents rolled off presses, each a reminder that America's smallest denomination, the humble penny, would endure even in a digital age. And yet, among those billions, just one anomaly, one slip in process, could create a masterpiece of error, a coin unlike any other. Some experts believe that's exactly what happened. Perhaps, during a routine switch in blank metal sheets, a single foreign planchet, slightly heavier, richer in tone, found its way onto the press line. The machine, unaware, struck it perfectly. The imprint of Lincoln's face fused into the golden surface. And then, as though destiny demanded secrecy, that coin slipped away, unnoticed, unrecorded, into circulation. Imagine that, a coin so valuable, so unique, accidentally released into the world to pass hand to hand, to rattle in drawers, to lie forgotten in jars, until someone, decades later, realizes what they're holding. It sounds like fantasy. And yet, history has proven such miracles happen. There was the 1943 bronze cent, a coin that should never have existed. During World War II, the Mint had switched to steel cents to conserve copper for ammunition. But a few leftover bronze planchets were struck by mistake. Those coins, once considered worthless, now sell for over $1 million. There was also the 1955 double die penny, where the misalignment of dies created ghostly doubled lettering, a Mint error that became an instant legend. The 2000 cent, however, carries a mystique beyond any of these. It belongs to the digital age, an era where information spreads faster than truth. The internet gave it wings, turning a whisper into a roar. Rumors began of one coin that had surfaced with a golden hue, perfectly preserved, authenticated under secret auction. The alleged price tag? $66 million. No one could prove it. No one could disprove it. That's what made it powerful. At first, the mainstream dismissed the story, until photographs began circulating. High-resolution images showed a coin that looked like no other cent. Its color shimmered between copper and gold, its edges crisp, its strike flawless. It wasn't proof, but it was enough to awaken curiosity, and curiosity, once ignited, is unstoppable. Collectors from all over the world began re-examining their own coins. Pawnshops received floods of inquiries. Dealers who once sold common pennies for cents suddenly found their inventories emptied by hopeful buyers. The penny had transformed into a symbol of hidden fortune, the idea that greatness could be hiding in plain sight. But in the shadows of this frenzy, something even more interesting began to happen: competition. Collectors who had spent lifetimes chasing rarities now found themselves racing against amateurs armed with magnifiers and faith. The hierarchy of the coin world began to blur. Suddenly, a teenager in a small town could make headlines by finding a rare variation in a jar of change. The power had shifted from museums to living rooms, and with it came obsession. Stories emerged of families who searched through years of coins, their hands stained with metal dust, eyes red from hours of examination. Some found coins that sold for hundreds, others for thousands. But all of them were chasing the same dream: the $66 million myth that turned copper into treasure. It's a strange thing, how an object so small can reshape human behavior. The penny, once forgotten, became a symbol of hope. It reconnected people with curiosity, with wonder, with patience. It taught an entire generation to look closer, but for some, it went even deeper. They began to see the penny as a metaphor for life itself, that the smallest things, often ignored, could hold unimaginable value. A single cent, humble and unassuming, could carry the weight of a story that outlives its maker. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, in the secretive world of elite auctions, whispers grew louder. Private collectors, millionaires, and museums had begun quietly acquiring high-grade 2,000 pennies, even ordinary ones, at soaring prices. Not because they believed they had the coin, but because they wanted to be part of the legend. Every collector wants to own a fragment of history, even if that history is half mystery. Some reports claimed that a sealed private auction in Europe had indeed seen a unique 2,000 penny trade hands for a staggering amount. Though not officially recorded, it fueled the belief that the $66 million story might not be fiction at all. But even if it were fiction, it had already achieved something remarkable. It revived a nation's fascination with its smallest coin. For a moment, Americans remembered what it felt like to believe. To hold something so ordinary, yet imagine it could change their life forever. And as this belief spread, the 2,000 penny transcended its physical form. It became a cultural artifact, a mirror reflecting both greed and wonder, hope and obsession, science and myth. Even today, numismatists continue their research. Metallurgical tests, dye studies, compositional comparisons, all attempting to locate the truth behind the anomaly. Some believe the golden tone came from experimental alloy testing in early 2000. Others think it's simply a fluke of environmental exposure that aged a few coins differently. But the beauty of the story lies in not knowing, because uncertainty keeps magic alive. Every year, new generations rediscover this tale. School kids digging through jars, hobbyists searching through rolls, and dreamers scanning every cent they find, all connected by a single question that refuses to die. What if it's real? And maybe that question is worth more than the answer. Because as long as people keep searching, as long as that spark of curiosity survives, the legend of the 2,000 penny will never fade. Under fluorescent lights, in quiet rooms, in the hush of late-night research, the hunt continues. The click of magnifier lids, the scrape of coin edges, the rustle of paper wrappers. It's a symphony of obsession, a rhythm of hope. Every movement whispers the same silent prayer. Maybe this one dot, and somewhere out there, maybe still buried in a drawer, maybe tucked in a child's forgotten piggy bank, maybe sealed away in a vault that no one has opened for decades, there lies the coin that started it all. Perfect, golden, eternal. A 1-cent miracle worth $66 million. Time, they say, erases everything. But there are some stories that refuse to be forgotten. They live on in whispers, in memory, in obsession, and the story of the 2,000 penny is one of them. It is the kind of legend that doesn't fade with years. It matures like wine, becoming richer, darker, and more intoxicating as decades pass. Even as the world moved forward into digital currencies, contactless payments, and invisible transactions, there were still people who bent over their kitchen tables late at night, sorting through coins by hand, feeling the cold texture of metal between their fingers. In that quiet ritual, the 2,000 penny had become more than a myth. It had become a meditation. Every flip of a coin was an act of faith. Every glint of copper under lamplight was a reminder that miracles, even now, can hide in plain sight. But the legend's reach was no longer confined to collectors. It began to seep into the culture itself. News articles, documentaries, and podcasts started revisiting the mystery. Talk show hosts laughed about it on air, yet secretly admitted to checking their own coins after the broadcast. Teachers began telling the story in classrooms, using it as a lesson about patience, curiosity, and the strange nature of value. Because what made the 2,000 penny so haunting wasn't just its rumored worth, it was what it represented. The idea that something so small, so overlooked, could suddenly become the center of the world. In a society driven by speed and scale, that message struck deep. It reminded people that greatness can begin with simplicity. A penny, the lowest form of currency, the coin people toss aside, the one that disappears between car seats and sidewalks, had become a symbol of untold potential. And in that symbolism, a quiet revolution began. Collectors' clubs expanded. Online forums turned into global communities. People who had never cared about numismatics suddenly found themselves learning about mint marks, planchets, and die errors. The word numismatist, once obscure, became a badge of pride. All because of one coin, one rumor, one unproven story worth $66 million. But while the world was captivated by hope, behind closed doors, a different kind of story was unfolding, one of rivalry, jealousy, and obsession. The professional collectors, those who had spent decades building their reputations, didn't like the chaos. They saw amateurs flooding the market with wild claims, doctored photos, and exaggerated stories. They saw fake gold-toned pennies being sold online for hundreds, sometimes thousands, all under the promise of being the one. What began as wonder slowly mutated into frenzy. And yet, that frenzy only made the myth stronger. Because in the noise, real discoveries sometimes emerged, coins with off-center strikes, doubled dies, strange hues. Not the legendary one, perhaps, but echoes of it, each feeding the fire a little longer. Auction houses began to lean into the spectacle. They understood something the public didn't, that emotion drives value. So they presented coins not as objects, but as stories. They dimmed the lights, used dramatic pauses, and let the audience feel the heartbeat of anticipation before the hammer fell. The atmosphere was electric. You could almost feel the tension in the air when a rare 2,000 penny came up for bidding. The auctioneer's voice would slow, eyes would shift, hands would tremble slightly. Because every person in that room knew that this wasn't just a transaction, it was a moment of history repeating itself. The story that had begun as myth was now reshaping reality, and somewhere in the chaos, someone always whispered, "What if the real one is still out there?" Those 6 words became the pulse of the entire phenomenon. They drove people to dig through attics, to open forgotten boxes, to visit antique stores and estate sales. Every old jar of coins became a potential treasure chest. Even those who didn't believe in the $66 million value believed in the possibility. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the world, belief. The beauty of the 2,000 penny legend is that it turned ordinary people into dreamers. It made them pause, look closer, and appreciate detail again. It reconnected them to something older, something almost spiritual, the thrill of discovery. But like all things that awaken desire, it also revealed something darker: greed. Some people began faking coins, altering surfaces, replating copper to mimic gold tones. The internet filled with scams, and yet, the real seekers never stopped. Because deep down, they knew that truth always finds a way to rise above imitation. Behind all this noise, the U.S. Mint remained silent. Official statements dismissed the existence of any such coin, yet that silence only made the legend more believable. Because when mystery meets denial, it breeds fascination. If the Mint didn't acknowledge it, perhaps they were hiding something. Perhaps the coin really was struck accidentally, covered up, lost, and never meant to be found. This theory spread faster than facts ever could. And in its spread, the penny became immortal. There's something poetic about it. How a story about the smallest coin could echo across continents, stirring emotion in millions. People in Canada, Mexico, even Europe began searching their own small denomination coins, hoping they might stumble upon an equally rare anomaly. The idea of the golden penny had transcended nations. It had become universal. It's hard to pinpoint when exactly the myth evolved into legend. Perhaps it was when the first fake auction listing went viral, claiming a sale for tens of millions. Perhaps it was when journalists started interviewing collectors who dedicated their lives to finding the coin. Or perhaps it was much earlier, the first night someone looked at an ordinary penny and saw something extraordinary. Because in truth, the 2,000 pennies' real worth was never just about money. The $66 million was a number, a symbol of magnitude, not a measure of value. What truly gave it power was the collective imagination of those who believed. There's a saying among collectors: you don't find the coin finds you. It's romantic, but in the case of the 2,000 penny, it feels real. Many of those who claimed to have stumbled upon unusual versions weren't even looking for them. They found them by accident, as if fate had quietly guided them toward history. Imagine that moment. You're sorting through spare change, not expecting anything. You pick up a coin that feels slightly heavier, warmer, almost glowing under light. You turn it, and for a heartbeat, time freezes. The 2000 date stares back at you, sharp and perfect. The surface gleams with a color that shouldn't exist. Your breath catches. In that instant, you're holding both the past and the future in your hand. It's not about the $66 million anymore. It's about connection, a bridge between centuries, between humanity and its own craftsmanship. It's about wonder. That's the magic the 2000 penny carries. The magic that money can't buy, that logic can't explain, that reason can't destroy. But not everyone sees it that way. For some, the legend became an obsession too heavy to bear. There are stories of collectors who spent fortunes chasing rumors, who lost sleep, relationships, even sanity searching for the golden cent. They followed tips across states, bought entire collections, and yet, the real coin always slipped through their fingers, like a ghost that refused to be. The story did not end with collectors or the auctions. It went deeper, slipping quietly into the world of private ownership, a place where secrets live behind vault doors and whispered transactions shaped legends. In that hidden realm of numismatics, there are no flashing cameras, no cheering crowds, no public statements. There's only silence, sealed contracts, and coins that never see daylight again. The rumor of a single 2000 penny, one with a faint golden shimmer unlike any other, had reached that underground world years ago. There were whispers of a transaction so private, so carefully orchestrated, that even the auctioneer's name was erased from memory. Some say it happened in Geneva, others in New York. A single coin, authenticated by experts sworn to secrecy, changing hands for a figure that defied reason. $66 million. But no documents, no proof, no photographs. Only stories. And yet, those stories were enough. Because in the world of rare collectibles, belief often outruns evidence. The very absence of proof makes something more powerful, more desirable. It creates an emptiness that imagination rushes to fill. The unknown becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, everyone sees what they want to see. The private collectors' networks began to hum with energy. Men and women who spent their lives pursuing rarity suddenly found themselves chasing a ghost. They searched not for the coin itself, but for fragments of its story, a note from an appraiser, a weight discrepancy in a shipment, an old ledger from the mint. Anything that might point toward the truth, and as they searched, something extraordinary began to happen. The 2000 penny, the humblest coin ever struck, became a currency of its own. People began trading high-grade versions like stocks. Each penny, no matter how common, carried potential energy, the possibility of being the one. Markets began to shift. Coins once valued at 50 cents climbed to hundreds, then thousands, as demand soared beyond logic. Collectors who had never looked twice at a penny before suddenly found themselves investing heavily, not because they believed in the coin's worth, but because they believed in its legend. The myth had become a market. The rumor had become an economy. But what drove this madness wasn't greed alone, it was fascination. The same force that made people stare at stars and wonder about life beyond Earth now made them stare at metal and wonder about chance. How could one small disk, identical to billions, be chosen by fate to become priceless? The deeper experts dug, the stranger the story became. Some metallurgists claimed to have examined coins from 2000 with irregular reflectivity, surfaces that reacted differently under ultraviolet light, suggesting a microscopic variance in copper plating. Others discovered faint traces of an alloy more common in experimental planchets from the late 1990s. The theories multiplied, and with them, the mystery thickened. It became impossible to separate truth from interpretation. Every explanation was both possible and impossible at the same time. Some said the coin had been part of a test batch, a brief experiment during the transition between suppliers of blank copper-plated zinc planchets. Others believed the mint had once prepared a limited set of gold-plated ceremonial cents, perhaps as a millennium gesture, only to have one mistakenly released. Then there were those who whispered of something even more fantastical, That the coin had been struck not by accident, but by intention. A hidden message. A symbol from within the mint itself. A secret signature of an unknown craftsman who wanted to leave behind an immortal creation. And no one could prove it. But the idea was beautiful, that somewhere, a person working deep within the machinery of the U.S. Mint had poured their soul into a single coin, infusing it with a kind of silent rebellion against anonymity. And maybe, in that act, the coin had absorbed more than just metal and light, it had absorbed meaning. As years turned into decades, the line between myth and faith blurred completely. The 2000 penny became a relic of modern folklore, a digital age miracle. Scholars began writing essays about it, not as a coin, but as a phenomenon of belief. They compared it to religious artifacts, to relics that command devotion regardless of proof. Because belief, when powerful enough, creates its own reality. Meanwhile, collectors' conventions had changed. Tables once filled with rare silver dollars and gold eagles now displayed rows of brilliant 2000 cents, each sealed in transparent holders, each accompanied by stories of its origin and certification. Under the bright lights of those convention halls, the air buzzed with anticipation. People weren't just buying metal, they were buying hope. A hope that maybe, in their palm, lay the same spark that had ignited the legend of 66 million. And even those who didn't believe couldn't help but feel it, that electric pull of possibility. Because deep down, everyone wants to touch a miracle. There are even rumors, unverified, impossible to confirm, of museums trying to secure the alleged golden Lincoln for display, only to be told it could never leave private ownership. Some say it lies sealed in a temperature-controlled case, its location known only to 3 people in the world. Some say it was destroyed. Others believe it was never found at all, and the sale itself was fiction, a performance designed to test the power of myth. Whatever the truth, one fact remains: no other coin in modern history has inspired such devotion. In small towns and big cities, in classrooms and coffee shops, the story still circulates. Parents tell it to children like a bedtime fable, that one day, they might find a penny so rare it could change their lives forever. And those children grow up to tell the same story again. In this way, the legend renews itself, generation after generation. Because that's what stories do when they become larger than reality. They stop belonging to the past and start belonging to everyone. And what's fascinating is how the world seems to respond to that collective belief. Every few years, a new anomaly surfaces, a coin with a peculiar shine, an unusual weight, a strange texture, and suddenly, the old myth awakens again. Articles appear, markets stir, eyes turn once more toward the humble cent. The cycle repeats like a heartbeat. But perhaps that's what makes the story eternal. The 2000 penny isn't just a mystery to be solved, it's a mirror reflecting the human soul, our longing to believe that hidden within the ordinary lies something extraordinary. That maybe the smallest thing we overlook daily might be the one that changes everything. And maybe that's why no one really wants the truth. Because once the truth arrives, the magic disappears. So the myth remains, beautifully suspended between fact and fantasy. It continues to glow quietly in the dark corners of belief, reminding everyone who hears its story that wonder still exists, that even in an age of algorithms and logic, there's still room for miracles. Somewhere, out there, a single penny sleeps in silence. It doesn't shimmer under glass or sit in a museum. It rests in a forgotten drawer, waiting for the right moment, the right pair of eyes, the right heartbeat of history to reveal itself again. Until then, the world keeps searching, not just for the coin, but for what it represents. Hope. Discovery. The dream that something small can still carry infinite worth. And so, every time a cashier drops change into an open palm, every time a child finds a penny on the ground and pockets it for luck, every time a collector opens a roll with trembling hands, the legend breathes again. Because the 2000 penny isn't gone. It's everywhere. It's in every coin that gleams under light, in every story whispered between dreamers, in every heart that still believes that magic can be real. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the legend will never die. And now, after all these years, after every whisper and rumor, after every collector's dream and every sleepless night spent staring at a copper disc under magnified glass, the story no longer belongs only to the experts, or the dealers, or the historians. It belongs to you, because somewhere, right now, you might be holding the very same mystery in your hands, and you might not even know it. That small, forgotten coin sitting in your drawer, or rattling inside your car's cup holder, or tucked deep in an old jar on your shelf. What if that is the one? What if that single penny, worn by time and unnoticed by everyone else, carries within it the spark of history worth millions? It sounds impossible, doesn't it? But every great discovery always sounds impossible, until someone dares to look closer. So take a moment. Think about every penny that's passed through your fingers over the years. Each one has a story. Each one has traveled across hands, across generations, across borders. Some have seen light and rain, sweat and metal, laughter and loss. Some have slept in silence for decades. And among them, there could be one that defies every rule of chance. That's the call this legend gives to everyone who hears it. Look again. Because the extraordinary doesn't hide in places beyond reach, it hides in plain sight, disguised as something ordinary. The 2000 penny teaches that truth better than anything else. So start with what's near you. Pull out that jar of change. Open that box you haven't touched in years. Examine those coins that seem too common to matter. Take a magnifying glass, a good light, and a few quiet minutes. You'll be surprised by what details emerge when curiosity guides your hands. Feel the texture of the coin, the ridges, the faint scratches, the subtle pattern of age. Look at the reflection under light. Sometimes, even a slight difference in shine can hint at a story untold. Tilt it slowly, listen to it roll, watch how it catches the world in its copper skin. And if, by some twist of fate, you find something different, a color too bright, a strike too sharp, a letter too bold, or a mint mark that shouldn't exist, hold on to it. Because that might be where your story begins. That's how legends live on, not through books or records, but through people who choose to look. The collectors who found their treasures never started with certainty. They started with wonder. That's what you need most, not knowledge, not wealth, but wonder. Because wonder opens the door to everything else. And maybe, as you search, you'll begin to see what makes this coin so special. It isn't just metal. It's a reminder that even in the smallest corners of our lives, value waits to be found. It tells us that everything, no matter how tiny, no matter how ignored, carries potential beyond imagination. That 1 cent, from the year 2000, has traveled across millions of hands. It has been part of countless lives, bought dreams, shared meals, sparked arguments, and witnessed moments no camera ever caught. Each penny has lived a life of its own. And one among them carries a destiny far beyond any price tag. Maybe you'll never find that exact coin. Maybe no one ever will. But the search itself, that quiet, personal hunt, is what makes the story real. Because every time you look, every time you care enough to notice what others ignore, you become part of the legend. Think about it. Every great discovery in history began with someone ordinary, someone who refused to look away. Someone who decided that even the smallest thing might hold greatness. And maybe that's what the universe wants from you too. Not to find the $66 million coin, but to rediscover your ability to see magic in the ordinary. To realize that miracles aren't lost. They're just waiting for eyes brave enough to notice them. So don't let the story stop here. Go to your drawers, your purses, your pockets, your jars. Gather those coins that have been forgotten and give them one more look. You don't need a lab or expensive tools. You only need curiosity. Because somewhere in that handful of change could lie the same mystery that shook the world of collectors. Maybe yours has the faintest hint of a doubled image. Maybe it weighs just a fraction more or less than normal. Maybe there's a small glint of gold in the copper glow, or a misaligned strike, or a pattern that doesn't match. These are not just errors. They are fingerprints of history. They are signs of something rare. And if you ever find something like that, don't rush to sell it. Don't chase the headlines. Hold it for a moment and think about what it means that a piece of history chose you. That among billions, one coin traveled all this way to rest in your palm. That's the true value of this story. Not the money, not the fame, but the connection between human and artifact. Between the seeker and the found. So check your coins. Tell your friends. Share the story. Let curiosity spread like fire. Because when millions of eyes begin to look again, when millions of hands begin to search, the world itself becomes more awake, more alive. The legend of the 2,000 penny doesn't ask you to believe blindly, it asks you to participate. To step inside the mystery and live it, and who knows? Maybe one day, your name will become part of the next chapter. The person who found the missing masterpiece, the hidden cent that the world thought was lost forever. Until then, let your imagination roam. Let it carry you through time, through history, through the countless hearts that touch these tiny copper circles before you. Because that's what the 2,000 penny really gives you, not wealth, but wonder. Hold one in your hand and feel it. Feel its cool surface warming slowly against your skin, as if it remembers every hand that ever held it. Feel its weight, small, almost nothing, yet heavier than stories, heavier than dreams. Because within that ounce of copper lies everything: history, chance, beauty, and mystery. And now, that mystery is yours to carry. The next chapter of this legend doesn't exist yet, it's waiting for you to write it, with your discovery, your story, your belief. So go ahead. Look closer. Search deeper. Somewhere, beneath layers of dust and time, the impossible still waits. And so, the story comes full circle. A single penny, born in the year 2000, struck from metal so common that it should have lived a life unnoticed, became something timeless, something that turned disbelief into wonder, and simplicity into legend. The journey began in the noise of the mint, and the spark of machinery, when billions of coins rolled off presses, shining under harsh industrial light. None of them knew where they would go, what they would buy, or whose hands would touch them. And yet, from those endless billions, one would rise beyond all others, not because it was richer, not because it was bigger, but because it carried a mystery that no one could explain. That's the strange beauty of fate. It doesn't choose the grand or the mighty. It hides itself in the smallest of things. A penny that could have disappeared into a gutter or sat unnoticed in a pocket somehow carried the weight of $66 million. A tiny circle of copper and zinc, worth 1 cent, ended up shaking the entire world of numismatics, rewriting how people saw value itself. Because the truth is, value isn't made of metal or money. It's made of belief. Every time someone looked at that 2,000 penny and wondered if it could be the one, they added something to its story. Every whisper, every search, every heartbeat that paused in curiosity, all of it gave the coin power. It became more than currency. It became a mirror of human hope. Maybe that's why the legend never fades. Because it's not really about a coin at all. It's about the endless search for meaning, about how we reach for miracles, even when logic tells us not to. When you think about it, every coin is a story. Every scratch, every nick, every mark is a memory of where it's been, the hands it passed through, the time it traveled, the world it's seen. The 2,000 penny is simply the one that reminded us of that truth more powerfully than any other. It taught us that hidden treasures don't have to shine in vaults or sit behind glass. Sometimes, they rest quietly in the places we least expect, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. And maybe that's what makes this legend eternal. Because as long as there are people willing to believe, to search, to hold hope in their hands, the 2,000 penny will never disappear. It will live on, not as metal, but as meaning. Somewhere, someone right now is hearing this story for the first time. Somewhere, a child is holding a penny under a light, staring at the date, wondering if this could be it. Somewhere, an old collector is going through his drawers again, his heart beating just a little faster. And somewhere, far away, that real coin, the one that started it all, is resting silently, waiting to be found once more. Maybe you'll be the one to find it. Or maybe you already have, and you just don't know it yet. But even if you never do, the search itself is what matters. Because in searching, you rediscover something we all forget: the ability to see beauty in the ordinary, to believe in possibilities beyond proof, to feel wonder again. That's the real gift this coin has given to the world. Not money, not fame, not fortune, but wonder. And perhaps that's worth more than $66 million. Because when a single penny can make millions of people believe again, it becomes more than an object. It becomes a legend, a symbol, a heartbeat of curiosity that will never die. So if, someday, you find yourself holding a penny from the year 2000. Pause for a moment. Don't rush. Don't toss it aside. Let it sit in your palm and feel its story. Think about every person who searched for it, every dream it's carried, every mystery it's held tight within its copper shell. Because in that moment, you're not just holding a coin, you're holding time itself. And maybe that's the real miracle, that something so small can hold so much meaning. That a single cent can remind the world that nothing is truly ordinary. So the legend ends. Or maybe it never does. It continues every time someone listens, every time someone believes, every time another hand reaches down and picks up a penny from the ground and smiles. The story of the 2000 USA 1-cent coin will echo forever, a whisper of metal, a shimmer of light, a reminder that somewhere, among the billions, there's always one that's different. One that holds the impossible. One that makes us believe, and maybe that's all we ever really need. Because as long as there's belief, as long as there's curiosity, as long as someone out there still looks at a coin and wonders what if, this story will live on. The machines may stop, the lights may fade, the hands that held it may pass away, but the legend will remain, quiet, eternal, waiting in the shadows of chance. So the next time you see a penny, don't just see change. See possibility. See mystery. See the story that refuses to die. Because maybe, just maybe, the world's most valuable treasure is already in your pocket. And if you listen closely, you might even hear it whisper, I was always more than 1 cent.